Welcome back to the IE427 garage, everybody. Today we're working on the King's Cobra, and we're getting ready for a scheduled visit from the King family. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to get this thing ready to go-kart. So what I'm pushing towards is getting the suspension nut and bolted, getting the pinion angle set on the back of the car, getting the front end aligned. I'm not too worried about corner weighting it right now, but I do want it to track straight, because what I'd like to do is, while the owner's out go-karting, I want him to bed the brakes. And so it's important that the car not steer right or steer left when he hits the brake pedal and cause issues. So we want to make sure that we've got an alignment on it. But come right back, I'll show you some of the stuff I've gotten done since the last video as well. I've really been taking my time on the carpeting for this one, and the primary reason is because we're using a different type of adhesive, a different type of glue to adhere the carpeting to the substructure, which is the fat mat. And I think I've given you the pros and cons of this type of glue. I'm slowly getting used to it. I'm learning better how to keep my tools clean while I'm using the glue, to not make a mess and get it all over my hands, but it's inevitable. So you do want to make sure you keep some mineral spirits or something that's going to take the material off your hands as it's drying, because even though it's water soluble as you're applying it, that doesn't mean that in 10, 15, 20 minutes it's going to come off with water. So we're using mineral spirits, and we're doing our best to keep it off the face of the carpet at all costs, so that we don't have to clean any of it off the surface. But I've got 99% of the carpeting done. I am going to leave that 1% left that the car owner is going to have to do later on when they get the car painted, and I'll explain that to you in a minute. But the last two pieces that I have to do are these two pieces in the trunk. So I've got this front portion here. I've got a piece already cut for that. I don't have the bottom piece cut yet, but I do have a piece over here. You can see with the blue backing that we're going to put in there, in that spot, but I want to make sure I get my measurement correct and have all the other pieces in first before I cut this piece. So that'll be the last piece that goes in. What I did here over on the door sill areas, I went ahead and I used the carpet that Factory 5 supplies. Now they supply this in two pieces, so this piece and then the top piece. And what I don't like is I don't like this raw edge that's going to be on the corner here. So I put these in with a different glue. I put it in with a kind of like your average homeowner's home center type glue. And you know, it's more meant for crafting than anything else. And it's this stuff right here. And the reason that I use that is because, and the reason I use it is because I want that piece, that one and the one over on the driver's side, to be able to be removed relatively easy, so that when the car owner gets the car painted, he can take those pieces loose, and then when he's finishing up, he can use the pieces that I'm pre-cutting for him, and I'm going to send those back with the car, so that at that point he'll have a brand new fresh piece of carpeting he can put in there that will fold over the top and not have that nagging corner seam. And so that'll be it for the carpeting. Now, as you saw, as I gave you a little peek inside the car, I've already got the seats mounted. Now, I mounted these in the same position that the car owner had previously mounted them in the car, and I'm going to give you this little cautionary tale, especially if you're using any type of racing seat in here. And it doesn't matter the manufacturer. The seats need to follow the line of the transmission tunnel. Okay, so they need to be parallel with the transmission tunnel. This car owner put them in close to that, and they're going to be just fine. If these were high backs and they had that bolster up here, we'd most likely be running into interference with the door locks. But I checked these before I initially pulled them out the first time, found out they were going to work with the door locks, and so I just left them where they were. So they're going to work. But just keep that in mind. Your seating position is not going to be parallel to the front and back of the car. It's going to be parallel to the tunnel. If you do not put them in that way, what you're going to find is you run into interference over here with your door lock, and the doors simply won't shut. You won't find that out until you're at the painters and you got to put the doors on and they won't latch, or you can't even get the locks set. So make sure that you take that note before you put your seats in, because most people are going to mount their seats before it goes to paint anyway, and it sure would be nice to have them mounted in the right spot the first time rather than have to do it twice. So on this side, what I'm doing now is I'm measuring for the upper harnesses. And so what I've done is, over the years, I found out that 30 inches from this point right here against the back of the car, or the, what do we want to call this? The back of the cockpit, out to basically the end of the webbing on the harness itself, we want 30 inches. So pull it taut and then measure to 30 inches. And then when you get it to that point, make a mark. And so my little silver Sharpie mark there is right here at the back of this 3/4 inch tube. And you can see I've marked both harnesses at 30 inches. What that does for me is it gives me a really good starting point. I put the buckles, the part you cinch down on, right in the center. And so that if anybody a little bit bigger, a little bit smaller is in the car, they have some adjustment. If you put it at its max and then adjust them to fit you, and someone bigger than you is in the car, either as a passenger or a driver, what you're going to find is now you're crawling in my case, my fat ass, into the trunk, trying to adjust them to give that person the amount of space they need in order to adjust the cinch down part of the harness. So I'm going to work on those for the next hour or so, I'm hoping, and then I'm probably going to jump onto the alignment. I've already set the pinion angle, and I've already nut and bolted the entire back end of the car, so I know everything's good back there. I also installed the drive shaft loop. So when I have the car up in the air during the alignment, I'll show you guys everything in the back of the car, and you'll see that it's pretty much all tidied up. I got all of the cushion clamps on for the emergency brake cables and that kind of stuff, just to keep everything out of harm's way. And so the back end of the car is pretty much done. I'm going to move to the front when I do the alignment and get all the stuff in the front kind of nutted and bolted and all that kind of stuff. While the camera was off, though, I did tighten down the engine mounts, because when I was under the car the other day, I noticed that the engine mount nuts for the mounts weren't tight, and so I went ahead and tightened those up. Normally I won't do that until we level the engine, but the engine on this one was level, and so I checked it real quick, and at the end of the side pipes, and everything was really close, and so I just tightened everything down, and we're good. So I'm going to catch up with you guys in just a little while, and we'll probably get to the alignment next. Coming to the end of the day, and I wanted to just come back and show you, I'm making some adjustments to the seats, and although your mind wants to tell you that you can't put the bolts for the seats where they attach to the brackets on these racing seats from the outside in this case you really want to, because you've got other stuff that has to kind of sit flush. One of those things is the snap. So there's a snap right here to snap the cover, the leather cover on here. And if you put this bolt facing from the inside out, what happens is that sharp bolt edge, which is going to be there, just like that, is going to want to tear the vinyl or the leather, because that bolt, I'll show you the seat cover right here, that bolt's going to be right about here. And you've got to kind of stretch the cover to get that snap to snap in. And so that bolt, the inside of that bolt, is going to be right against the inside of the cover. So you really don't want to do that. On the back ones, they're just easier to put in from inside out, because you've got limited room and you have to reach through here where your seatbelts come through to get your nuts on the bolts. So it makes sense to do them back there, and there's nothing on the cover that's going to actually be in jeopardy. The front's a different story, especially on this one, because we got multiple things going on, and we've also got the brake boot right there. And so I don't want that bolt sticking out and having a chance to rip the boot on the brake handle or the cover itself. So I made sure to run the bolts from the outside in, and then there's enough padding, you can see, there's enough padding in here that it's going to take up any of that, the bolt offset that kind of sticks into the inside of the seat. I'm in the midst of adjusting all of the straps for the 5-point harnesses. I'm getting them, they would fit me, but I'm really at the edge of whether they would fit me or not. You know, I'm a big guy, and so for me to adjust them for me, then at their minimum settings, you know, they may not be small enough or tight enough on, you know, a smaller human, a kid, a teenager. So we want to give the family the most adjustability so that anyone who is, you know, old enough and big enough to ride in the car gets a chance because the seatbelts fit them. So I'm finishing up that, but I will catch up with you tomorrow when I start on the front end alignment. One more thing. I always remember things right after I shut the camera off. I finished the last 2 pieces of carpet. So as you remember, I didn't have the trunk floor in here in the drop box, and I didn't have the front wall of the drop box done. They're done now. The glue is still tacky. I hate the way the camera keeps doing that, but it's because I'm just pointing at something that's all black. But so the trunk is done, and that represents the last piece of carpet that we're going to put in the car. And like I said, I'm gonna pre-cut some pieces to replace these, and I'll send those home with the car so that when the owner decides to get this painted, that he'll have, you know, an extra couple pieces of carpeting to put in there and finish it off. I didn't have the channel back when I was building Slytherin, but you know, I drove Slytherin for almost 12 years in gel coat, and I put a lot of miles on the car, and I did a lot of autocrossing. I did a lot of Mrs. IE 427 and myself did a bunch of cross-country trips where we'd go to Utah, we'd go to Northern California, we'd ride with the groups that you know, are in those areas. It wasn't until after I got the car painted that we went to, you know, the London Cobra show and the Texas Cobra Club spring meet. So we've put a lot of miles on our car in gel coat, so I'm really familiar with all the things you want to do to finish it like to that point. Like when we put the body on and the doors on, we're going to gap the doors a little bit just so they close, so they open and close for the King family. We'll do the same with the hood. We'll get it just to the point where it'll close and shut and, you know, be somewhat flat and level with the surrounding body. But we're not going to go overboard because we don't want to, you know, screw over the guy that's doing the painting and the body work later. So I think I've got a surprise for you guys when we get to that point, but I'm going to keep that under wraps for right now. And like I said, for the 3rd time now, I will catch up with you tomorrow when I start on the front end alignment. All right, welcome to the next day, everybody. For today, we're going to be aligning the front of the King's Cobra. And I started fussing around with some of the control arms yesterday evening, the upper control arms. And I'll get to that in just a second. But what we're going to be using for our alignment is a tool made by Fast Tracks, and that's the tool right there. It's really easy to use. I've been using this tool for, what, 20 some odd years now, and I would venture to say that my alignments are just as good, if sometimes not better, than alignments you're going to get, you know, down at the local tire place, because I put the extra time in to make sure that everything's dialed in correctly. You know, an alignment from an alignment shop is great for your daily driver, you know, make your tires wear nice and everything, but we want the alignment on this to be dialed in just a little bit more specific. And so having a race shop or someone that specializes in, you know, race cars or hot rods is probably your best bet if you can. So here's what I ran into last night, and I'm not throwing anybody under the bus. You know, a lot of guys that build these cars have never built a car before. They've never aligned a car before. So they really have no idea about any of the adjustments that need to be made to the upper control arms. So this is the warning that I'm going to give you. If you don't understand the parts that you're going to be cutting, for instance, on the back control arm adjusting sleeve, don't cut it. because you can get yourself into a lot of trouble by cutting it and then finding out that you didn't cut it properly. And I got a little bit of that in this, but I was able to save it. So here's where we're at. The control arms, the upper control arms, are not mirror images of one another. So what you're going to end up with, on one side, you're going to end up with the front and it having two bolts in it. So it'll have a bolt here and a bolt here. And then there's a fixed portion of the upper plate that the ball joint screws into, and on that side, it's fixed. It doesn't have a bolt in it. The only bolt on that side is going to be on the inside where the pivot is. Now, notice that on the passenger side, we have the two bolts facing forward. On the driver's side, we only have the one bolt facing forward, and we have the fixed end over here. And then on the back of this driver's side, again, we have two bolts. So one on the inside, one on the outside. Now these sleeves have been cut. We also have the studs that have been cut. Now, because this can come off really easy, you can cut, you can take this whole arm off, just support the front of the vehicle, take this whole arm out, run the sleeve off of the inside, and then you can cut, I usually cut about 1/4 of an inch off each side of the sleeve. Now remember, I said 1/4 of an inch off each side of the sleeve. And then I cut about 3/8 of an inch off of the threaded studs. Now what we ran into here is that this removable side, the stud had been cut, I'm guessing between 3/8 and 1/2 an inch, which is fine. This side was left long. This sleeve I pulled off the other side, and I had to swap them because the way the other side had been cut, it was only cut from one side. If you notice, this sleeve has been cut on both sides. So it has a fresh cut on the sleeve on this side. You can see some of the silver, and has a fresh cut on this side. You can see some of the silver. So equal amounts had been taken off that sleeve from both sides. On that passenger side, all of the meat of that adjuster sleeve had been taken off of one side. And what happened is, as you tried to bring it in, meaning bring the two studs closer together, the one side bottomed out, and I couldn't get any more adjustment out of it. And I'm going to get into that a little bit more in just a second. On this side, I was able to save that sleeve because the side that had been left, which is this side, needed to be threaded deeper. And I just happened to have a tap that's this size. And so I was able to actually thread it in just a little bit farther and save this. But what I did is I brought it over to the driver's side of the car, and it works better over here. So it doesn't have to go as deep on this side because of the way the studs were cut. So they're not all perfect. They're not all the same amount. When I cut them here in the shop, if I'm cutting them loose, I cut them before I even put them on the car, so I can put them in the bandsaw and I can make sure they're precisely cut at the same distance, each one, even the one that's fixed. And when you're cutting them, in your vise with a hacksaw or a sawzall or even a cutoff wheel, it's hard to get it exactly. Now I did have to cut that fixed stud on the other side, and I did it on the car, and the only way I was able to get in there was with a angle grinder and a death wheel. And I managed to get it cut somewhat square with the nut on the stud, and then I threaded the nut off the stud to clean the threads up so that the sleeve would go on. So I did all that last night. And every one of these sleeves that I've kind of messed with or had off the car, I've made sure that the adjustment is equal on each side. So if you look here, we have equal thread engagement here and here. And you want to make sure that you have that, because if they're uneven, I'm going to show you one of them that's uneven now. If they're uneven, what's going to happen is one side is going to bottom out sooner. Now, a lot of times that's not going to even impact your adjustments for your alignment. But to me, it just looks sloppy. I pull the control arms completely apart when I pull them out of the box. I lube them. I pull the end bolts off. I pull the adjusters and the Delrin bushings off. I put grease on there. I reassemble them with grease, and so they're all put together. All of the threads on the adjuster sleeves get a little bit of anti-seize. So I pull them completely apart. Not everybody does that. So on this side, you can see I've already messed with this one. I've pulled it apart, and I've made the gap here and here the same, so that we have just as much of adjustment on either side. On this one, you can see we don't have that. We have far less adjustment here than we have over here. Now, it probably wouldn't matter at all on the front of these control arms, because we're going to actually open them up. We're trying to get more caster to be dialed into the front end alignment, and so I'm going to open those things wide anyway. But it sure would be nice to have them even, so that we know we have equal thread engagement on each side. So I'm going to fix them. I'm going to fix this one anyways. The other one on the other side is fine, and I've already fixed the two rear facing on each of the control arms because I've had them apart. But I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to fix that one. I'm going to kind of show you how I'm going to do it. Basically, this is the fixed side. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull this bolt completely out. So it's loose now. Like, I can turn it with a wrench. I loosen all these up so I can make my adjustments for my alignment. But I'm going to pull this bolt completely out. Then I'm going to take these and I'm going to run them all the way in on both sides. I'm then going to just push this end far enough into the recess here where the bolt goes through, so that the square part of it is engaged, and then I'll adjust it out until this bolt will run right through, and I'll be able to line it up and drop the bolt in. So that's an easy way, if they're on the car, to get them perfectly adjusted so that you have equal thread engagement on either side. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'll bring you guys back when I start getting into kind of the alignment itself and show you what I'm doing. All right, well, the alignment's done. There really wasn't a whole lot to show. It was really, this one was really easy. I did leave the toe setting till last, and I'll probably go back and readjust toe once we go-kart the car, or before we send it home, just to make sure that the steering wheel's in the right alignment. But it was pretty easy. The driver's side was really a piece of cake. I mean, however I eyeballed it when I put everything together, it was like a turn and a half on the front adjuster, and it was perfect. And even when I went back and double checked it, I think I only turned it maybe quarter turn, and it was really close. The passenger side did give me a little bit of difficulty. It generally always does, because all the adjustments are backwards. So however you do it on the driver's side, it's a little bit, I mean, it's the same but the opposite on the passenger side. And somehow my dyslexia just doesn't allow me to invert all the adjustments. And so I end up fighting myself. I'll overcompensate for it the one way and then have to take it back. So it took me a little bit longer, but I think I had the whole thing aligned in about an hour. And it's pretty easy with a 3-link car, because there's really no adjustments in the back other than a pinion angle. You can't adjust the the track of the car other than centering the diff with the panhard bar. So it's really easy, because all your adjustments are really in the front. So the alignment's done. The car owner is due here tomorrow afternoon. So I'll see how we're doing on time, and then I'll make a determination on whether to end the video, or if we're going to go ahead and include the first go-kart in this video. Welcome to tomorrow, everybody. The The King family has come and gone. We are going to push their go-kart experience video to next week. And it was a mixed blessing. It was very rewarding. For us anyways, the family got to take the car out. Everyone but I think one, maybe two of their children got to go for a go-kart ride. And Chad, the owner, he got to drive the car around the block, what, 4 times. So really cool for him. We did notice that each time he was pulling into the driveway, we seemed to have a little leak going on, but I kind of knew that we had a leak. It appears as though the water pump, where the backing plate of the water pump comes together, there's a gasket there. It appears that that's where we're getting our leak from. I'm going to see if I can get to the bottom bolt to tighten it up, but I'm really not sure that that's going to do any good. At some point, the water pump will have to come off and either re-gasketed or just replaced, because that's where the leak is coming from. The bigger issue was that it wasn't just leaking from that spot. So it has a pretty generous leak at the transmission, to the point where it has gotten all over everything in the back of the car. So I'm probably going to have to spend a couple hours cleaning everything up once I've identified where the leak is coming from. I'm hoping it's something minor, but at this point, all I know is there's transmission fluid all over everything in the back of the car. Let me grab a light and I'll show you guys what the back of the car looks like now. All right, so I don't know how well this is going to show up on camera, but you can see it is just soaked with transmission fluid all back here. The rear mount is soaked as well, so it's something before the rear seal, because it's wet in front of the rear seal. So we're really going to have to look to see what's going on here. I have not had a chance to even kind of look at it yet, but just right here you can see the whole drive shaft loop is covered. This part of the frame is covered. This part of the frame is covered. Almost the whole differential on the bottom side is covered with transmission fluid. The pannered bar, the gas tank liner on the bottom, the control arms. We're going to have to spend a considerable amount of time cleaning all of this up, because everything just got a bath. And like I said, I haven't even done anything other than getting it up on the lift at this point to see where the leak is coming from. I'm hoping it's going to be something simple, like maybe a gasket on the speedometer sensor that goes on the side of the T5, or, God, I hope it's not that the case isn't sealed, because the cases where they part from the tail shaft and the main housing notoriously leak. It's all a matter of just mitigating the leak and making it as little as possible whenever you pull these things apart, because there's really no good sealer to put between the two surfaces to keep the transmission fluid from coming out of the transmission, because the transmission fluid itself is somewhat corrosive, and so it eats through most gasket materials. So we'll check that out over the next couple of days, and we'll know in the next video what the determination is and what has to happen in order to fix it. But at this point, I'm looking at the positives. The positives were it didn't overheat. The engine is healthy. So we had great oil pressure for the entire time that the family had it out. The fan cycled on and off a number of times, so we know that all that's working. The speedometer worked, all the gauges worked. So we're in good shape as far as that. The only problem we have is the transmission leaking in the back and that small leak at the front where the water pump is leaking. But the water pump, like I said, it's not bad enough that if it was mine, I'd just let it leak, because it's 1 or 2 drops every time you drive it in the car after you take it for a ride. So, at that point, it's not even really a considerable leak. So to me anyways, it wouldn't even be worth pulling it all apart just to fuss with it. But it's going to be up to the owner We're going to leave it as it is for now. If he asks us to change out the gasket, we will. But, you know, the whole front dress has to come off in order to get to it. So I don't know that that's something we're going to want to get into right now. So I think that's where we're going to leave this one. As always, if you guys are enjoying the content, please do the like, the share, the subscribe, all that kind of stuff. We'll see you next time. Have a great day.